Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. And today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome into the studio Polina from EdgeConnect AI. Polina, lovely to meet you.
Lovely meeting you, Toby.
Thanks for coming in. Look, really exciting time. You're coming up to the anniversary of the first year of the business. Startups has always been something I've been fascinated with in this sort of space. It's been a time where we've seen some companies come in with renewed vigour over the course of this year after probably a little bit of a pause over the last year or so. More and more companies are having the sort of courage to come out there and do some exciting things, and I think technology has probably driven that. Obviously, you have AI in the name of the business, so I'm imagining that's one of the enablers for it. So we've got lots to talk into, including how you're revolutionising the world with data and improving the industry. So I'm really looking forward to getting under the skin of that, finding out a little bit more about it. But before we do that, Polina, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then introduce the company.
Yes, of course, more than happy to. So Polina, I've spent the past decade in the financial market space. Most recently, I was at HG Capital, Europe's largest software fund, where I firsthand experienced all their excitement of being an investor, but also some of the challenges which come with it. During my time at HG, I saw firsthand how powerful the data can be and the technology that we adopted to analyze our investment processes.
Yeah.
And one of the ideas that was born during my time there was to automate the portfolio management operations. What we've discovered is that there is so much unlocked data that sits in the company's proprietary systems such as ERP, CRM, and that does not really get utilized, and especially is not visible to the investor who has a portfolio of 10 companies. So we've decided to revolutionize it with EdgeConnect. EdgeConnect is a portfolio data management platform. We're building solutions which allow investors to collect their data automatically, standardize it, benchmark it, and drive insights for their value creation strategies, but also for transparent and coherent reporting.
And what sort of prompted that? So you've obviously been in the space for 10 years, as you say. I love the sort of origin stories of a founder about what sort of prompted you to say, look, this is something here which is needed. This is something which we have to go to. Tell me a little bit about the foundation, because you're a co-founder and CEO, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
Talk about how the whole thing came together.
Yes, of course. Big part of my investment role was reporting the company's performance and identifying strategic value creation initiatives within the investments we've made. And on average, that would take 20 hours per week to collect the data from the companies. The company would put extensive effort into aggregating data from their systems and hard coding it manually in Excel, sending Excel for our review. As an investor, I would not really know the origin of the data that well, and I would try to reconcile the numbers, definitions, and standardize it into the actionable insights that I could bring to the board discussions. That was a challenging process, and I think my former employer, HG, was one of the funds at the forefront of change, where they started using their data science team in order to analyze the data and bring this forward for actionable strategic outcomes. However, I've noticed that other funds, especially smaller ones, did not have the luxury of having so many resources for data analytics. And I felt that there is still much more improvement to be done in the data collection automation, as well as deriving strategic insights from the data. So what we've come up with as an idea with my co-founding team is to automatically collect data from various software systems using API technology and structure the unstructured data for actionable insights using AI. AI is a big word right now, as you said. Every startup uses AI. What we refer to is really structuring of their information from a variety of systems and standardizing the definitions and mapping the financial metrics tracked by the investors. So our software currently collects data, transforms it into actionable insights, and benchmarks and guides investors on their value creation, but also reporting use cases.
I think that actionable insights is such an important part of this, isn't it? Because data's been a buzzword for the last decade. and we know that the industry has a lot of opportunity within it. As I say on this show, for viewers who've been watching it a few times, I think the financial services industry has lagged behind on its use of data for some time, and I think there's some really clever businesses now that are shaking that up a little bit and allowing some of the breakthroughs we've seen in areas like retailers, for example, and recognising that how we can utilise that to improve the financial services industry. To me, everyone's wanted to collect data, everyone's been fascinated with data, we looked at market data, it's been something there which everyone's talked about, but that key part of actionable insight seems to me to be the core part of it, and that's a challenge for businesses, isn't it? They've got tons of data, there's so many different areas of it. How do we utilise it? How do we turn it into a benefit moving further forward? How are you guys dealing with that? How are you helping companies to solve that challenge?
Our core technology is automated collection and standardization of data. Then we build the benchmarks where the companies can see which areas are potentially the value drivers of their business and which ones are lagging behind. So if I provide some use cases for this, we can look at the revenue analysis for retail business or SaaS business, and we would go into granularity of customer split by segment, geography, industry to understand what are the core areas with the highest ROI for the business, and how actually those businesses that the fund invested in compare to each other, what they can learn from each other. Fundamentally, what EdgeConnect is about is sharing the know-how and using innovation for the funds to manage their portfolio holistically, whilst emphasizing individual strengths of each business in the portfolio. So by cleansing the data, standardizing it, and comparing it, we can give specific recommendations on what are the areas of potential improvement, what are the strengths and weaknesses for each portfolio company.
And how's it been? So it started in January, you're sort of 9 months into the story so far. How's it been being a founder? How's it been in startup world?
It's been incredibly exciting. I think large part of it is having an exceptional support network from some of the leading funds in the space, given myself coming from HG, and I've been feeling an incredible amount of support on this journey, which is very important for a young founder, especially to form your thinking and bring the real value to the customer. And a massive part of it is obviously also having the right team. My co-founders, one who's originated, who came from the financial services space and the CRM space and led the product vision alongside me, and my CTO Arno, who comes from building the Python engineering infrastructure at Goldman Sachs, one of the largest financial institutions. They really helped me translate my commercial vision into the reality. And my team has been, frankly, the most rewarding part of building this product. Team and customers, so side by side. But I think the exciting part of it is being a part of the community, knowledge sharing, and feeling that you're making a real change and difference with the people who surround you.
What would you say? I mean, look, there's a lot of people who are going through that journey at the moment, or just about to go through that journey. They've got an idea, they want to take it through. If you look at some of the sort of key things that you take away and say to yourself back in January or December 2023, January 24, what are some of the things that you'd be saying to yourself about what you've learned over this period so far? Number one,
find the right team, and this is your core team who are building the business with you day to day. This is your advisor network, your investor network, partner network. These are customers. So the right surrounding yourself with the right people. Business is about people. It's only that much about product at some point. It's about what vision can your team and people around you can execute for the next 10 years. And that's been fundamentally important, and I'm very grateful to the people who made it such a delightful experience. Number two, I think ability to listen is even more important for a founder than in my ever previous experiences. The business exists because it solves a specific problem, a pain point that the customer have. So the only word you live by is the customer's word, and the ability to listen and hear what they have to say is what will determine your success or failure.
Absolutely. Particularly in the building of a product, right?
Exactly, yes. I'm still on this journey and I'm learning.
I think you'll be on it the whole way.
I will definitely be. And I think number 3 is agility and flexibility. There will be challenges which you have never foreseen coming, and they will come every day. They will come from your work with financials, product. There is a wide area of outcomes there. And it's about how you handle those. What really makes you a great business or no.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that sort of versatility, and it's the entrepreneurial mindset, right? So it's come through from you being in a fairly formal environment for 10 years to suddenly come in there and build that. It's not for everyone, is it? When it comes through from that, and that versatility and the ability to wear so many different hats. I mean, your job must have changed immeasurably over the last 9 months, right?
It
in
has
terms of
indeed.
doing a bit of everything.
It has indeed, yes.
Enhancing the skill sets.
Yeah. I actually have an interesting story on that. So this is my second startup. My first startup was a very small venture, but back in the university times, I founded a non-profit company in Ghana, in Accra.
Wow.
And the company was founded because in local schools, the students could not afford tuition payments, and we've hired local craftsmen to manufacture apparel, sell it in the United States, and sponsor the school education for children from underprivileged backgrounds. I've learned so much from the journey that after 10 years since I've built that business, I feel how those learnings are applicable now. To some extent, even more so than my investment career. And I think what I've also noticed is no matter what you're building in which space, whether it's a profit-oriented business or non-profit, the fundamental learnings are the same. Be agile, treat people with respect, listen, and stay excited.
The staying excited part is certainly a part of it, isn't it? So tell me about how it's been adopted by your clients. You mentioned customers there beforehand. Your team, when you were saying that, there's something I've said for the last 20 years since I've been in this industry, 25 years, which is I think people are the fundamental part of any business. Not revolutionary to say that, but I always think if you've got a good product, a great product, but you've got a bad team, that product's never going to reach its potential. But if you've got a bad product and a great team, you can turn the product into a great product, which is an easier transition to make. So I love what you were saying there about the internal team and how important that is. But I also heard you talk there about the sort of support you've got from your mentors, but also your customers. And that's always the sort of, I guess, testing point of any startup, isn't it? A customer's wanting to buy it, and are you getting people over there? So tell us about the reaction. What sort of problems were they facing? Which I guess you touched on a little bit so far, but how are you solving those sort of problems for them, and what's the feedback being from those customers?
Yes, I think one of the key learnings we've reached so far is that customers care about efficiency of collecting and structuring data. It's quite specific to our product, but I came in with a vision of I would love to improve my life by making reporting easier. So we actually started from looking at reporting dashboards, how we could improve that. But that was not the pain point. From customer conversations, the more information we've been ingesting, we've realized that the pain is actually in the manual, tedious process of accessing the data, efficiently channeling it while preserving all their privacy, security protocols, and then translating the data, structuring it into insights that then goes into reporting. So that thin layer of reporting was hiding an iceberg of work which related to processing and structuring of the data. And usually the hardest problems are the most valuable ones to solve.
Absolutely.
So that's what we found out. So our product actually got much more technically complex in the sense, and we've had to rebuild our data model to account for incredibly complex use cases of data coming from various sources and getting structured. But the customers were really the ones who told us we would like to focus on this specific pain point. Could you please help us with this? You
originally had this product which you thought, right, this is the issue that we're going to solve. You brought the customers on board, you showed them and showcased that sort of thing, and then they said, let's enhance the product, this is what we really need, and that's how you sort of built the business from there onwards. I love how often that is the case, isn't it?
Yes.
Great customers feeding into you about how they need to have their problems solved is such an intrinsic part of doing the job, isn't it?
Yes. We felt that the early adopters, the innovative funds who are thinking about the investment horizon 10 years ahead, not necessarily 1 year ahead, were the ones who really resonated with the vision of having the entire workflow automation piece just coming from this, tackling this issue of data.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had to adjust to it, and we had to put extra resources into building some of the infrastructure to support it. Again, not for the next year, but for the next 10 years. But you're absolutely right in customers are the real book that will guide you through this journey. You cannot really learn it from ideating on your own.
And have you found this sort of sales process? Because in startup world, it's difficult. The last couple of years have been more and more challenging to get people to buy. The feedback I've heard from vendors across the space in all sorts of different areas has been that it's been challenging to get people to commit to things. It seems like you're having immediate access and immediate joy on that. So tell me about why it's been so adopted so well so quickly.
We're still early on in our journey. But what's really helped us was people believing in us as a team, as our ideas, maybe part of that coming from the network and relationships we've built, and also our ability to bring in knowledge. I think what makes us stand apart from some of the other software vendors is having spent years in the industry as an investor and knowing what drives the value of the business once you acquire it. Helps you have a dialogue where you think of it from the IRR returns perspective rather than from just automating the process. So a lot of conversations we have with customers is actually what makes a good investment and how do you extract value from that investment over the long-term horizon, how do you collaborate with your portfolio companies, management teams, what creates efficiencies. So that in summary, that comes down to the knowledge that we've been sharing and the education process, ability to listen and reflect rather than just selling a point solution. Generically, I love the book on the solution sales. Now you're not really selling a product, you're selling a solution to the problem, a holistic approach, which involves industry know-how. So that's what we've been focusing on, and still early in my career days, I'm constantly learning every day from my customers and mentors how together we solve some of those solution questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that solution selling is that's a whole other show, isn't it, to dive into that. But it's just that it makes so much sense, doesn't it, to actually look at that and try and understand. And I think that think first to understand rather than to solve is an important part of it. And so many vendors come in there and just tell you here's the solution and why you need it, rather than saying let's understand the bespoke element of what your problem is, so then we can help solve it there afterwards. It's really interesting. So tell us a little bit about where you go. You're as I say, coming up to your anniversary, your year, moving into a year in by the time this is out. What does the future look like? What's exciting? What's on the horizon for you?
Our global vision is to be the Bloomberg of private company data. We want to create not only the automation workflow to reduce time spent on portfolio management, but also be a centralized database for having the access to the information you need from your portfolio and access to benchmarks to understand how your portfolio is performing and what are the drivers. The next important part of our roadmap is one we are connecting to increasing number of sources, because the data doesn't necessarily live just on the ERP system of the company. It can come from the CRM, HR, data lakes. We're looking at partnerships with vendors like Snowflake. We're now actually part of the program which Snowflake's sponsoring, where we want to build a data warehouse for the investment fund with information, all of its underlying assets, subject obviously to consent of the companies of sharing this data. And we want this idea of the data warehouse to become the reality for every investment manager in the private space. So that's where a lot of our effort goes: integrations, data warehouse building. The next couple of years will be much more focused on analytics and benchmarking once the data is securely hosted in the infrastructure. And I'm really looking forward to it.
I think it's really interesting for me that you are in a space that traditionally has probably been a little bit non-receptive of innovation. So if you look at investment management as a whole, to me it's always felt a little bit traditional, and it's technologically it's been a laggard in terms of where it can go. That to me is such an exciting opportunity, isn't it? Because once you start to see the spaces on that, you can see acceleration into it. Insurance was another area which I think was slow to come into the arena. But I think if we can get, and I remember actually sitting into maybe 8 years ago, looking for companies. A specific investment manager asked us to sort of find some innovative companies for a panel of CTOs who were talking around the subject, and said, could we get some interesting people together for it? And it was difficult to find people who were specifically in that space. Now it's been really adopted, and that's a great news for you, right? Especially now when we look at data and the clamour for the use of that data. I'm interested to sort of touch back onto that. You mentioned, and I think how people use data is really interesting. Tell us about what you do with the data, where it can go, how that becomes exciting for you, for the customers as well.
Yeah. I'd like just to resonate to your point that you made, because it's the core of our vision. So currently, 45% of investors share their data via email.
Is that right?
However, 90% are keen on adopting the right technology for automation.
Yeah.
We've never seen so much appetite and ambition to adopt the
Those
technology.
Those are great stats, right? Yeah.
And we're at the inflection point of this change. So how can you use data? As I've mentioned, revenue drivers is one of the areas we're particularly excited about. From my career in software space, I've realized how you can improve your customer satisfaction by looking at specific initiatives to reduce churn, drive customer acquisition, improving your sales efficiency and your sales compensation structure. So everything related to the top line, both on the side of analyzing the customer cube, analyzing your ARR, and slicing and dicing it to understand what are the key contributors to growth and what is making you lose customers and revenue. And number two, sales efficiency is very important. We speak about LTV, CAC, and payback period every day, but actually very few companies track it accurately.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to become the industry standard, the tracking and analysis of this data.
And the accuracy is so important, isn't it?
And the accuracy.
Because this to me is a core fundamental pain point in the industry, that the accuracy of the data is, we're within financial services, you're in an industry that is too regulated, too important, has the ramifications are too big to be approximately right when you're looking at data. And there's so many areas there and problems that come up from a lack of accuracy and a lack of insight or a lack of story behind that sort of data. So companies like yours are able to push that and create that and give access to it and speed and velocity to it all. I'm always interested in a startup. So as a startup, saving money for companies, is it making money for companies? Is it reducing friction for companies? Is it adding profitability or productivity to a business? And my guess is that you probably fall into a number of those different categories in what you're doing as well.
I would hope so. We start again from just automating your workflow and saving you a lot of time. You can reallocate this time in finding great investment opportunity and creating returns. But as I mentioned, this strategy of looking at the top line, looking at their actual revenue of the investment managers and obviously the performance of the underlying companies, that's the core. That's the really golden source of what will drive this industry in the coming years. I think important to note here that there is a lot of discrepancy at the board meetings when people are looking at various numbers, various data sets, and bringing this transparency and auditability is very, very important.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting space, and there's plenty of opportunity to come into it. So you're loving the journey?
I'm loving the journey, yes.
And so if people want to get in touch, who are the sort of people who should be reaching out to you at the moment, and how best for them to get in touch with you?
I think myself, mainly myself, any of my co-founders at EdgeConnect AI. We are very public on LinkedIn. We are very public with our website.
So important, isn't it?
I would love to hear from you, yes. And if you would love to transform the way you manage your data and learn how we can help you drive the value creation and improve relationships with portfolio companies, we're here.
It sounds like it's going to be a good call to make. Polina, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.